All right, everybody, how are you doing? This is S. Anthony Thomas. This is S. Anthony Says, the podcast starring me, S. Anthony Thomas. And this is episode number 501. And I want to thank you guys for listening to episode 500. It was kind of interesting. When I started out doing this 1.5 million years ago, and somebody would have said, you're going to do 500 episodes, I would have thought they were crazy. I just thought it was going to be a cute little hobby that I did for a little while. I'd do 30 or 40 episodes, and then I'd get out of it. Like when you're, or a sitcom, you do 100 esodes and you get up out of there. But I kept enjoying myself, and people kept listening. So, I'm still here. So thanks for that. So let's just get right to business. Episode number 501. I just want to talk about the importance of thinking before we say things to people, right? A lot of times we don't realize how important it is to think before we say things to people. And as a retired comedian, because I was a stand-up comedian for decades, I've been retired for a while, but I'm going to go back most likely because my friends keep asking me to come back and do it again. And, when I would pop in on stage every once in a while, it went really well. So it's not like I lost it, but it's just, circumstances beyond my control have taken me away from it. And, you get into a habit of not doing something, and all of a sudden you're not doing it for a while. And then you look back and it's like, gag, I haven't done it in how many years? And it's the same thing if you're in a relationship with a friend, you haven't talked to them in a while. And then it's not like you don't want to talk to them or they don't want to talk to you. Some time goes by and all of a sudden you look up and you haven't talked to your friend in an extended period of time. And in most cases with me, the second you pick up the phone and you run into each other, you kind of click right back in. It's almost as if you hit the pause button on the friendship or the friendship goes to sleep like your computer does. But when you pop the screen back up on your laptop, bang, it's right back where you left off. And a lot of your friendships are just like that. But every once in a while, when you pick that laptop screen up, right? You pick that laptop screen up and it doesn't pop on, right? You got to hold down the power button for 30 seconds or whatever. And then you hit it again and then it pops on. And then sometimes you got to do a whole lot of you don't know why, but it just isn't the same. Maybe it's running slower. Have you ever had that happen? You run into an old friend and you guys were cool, man. Maybe you were good friends in high school. Maybe you were good friends in college. Maybe you were good friends at your former employment. And then you run into each other and you got that positive expectancy, man. You got that smile on your face. You do that thing where you pause and you put your hands up to the sides like, hey, buddy. Then you walk quickly toward each other. You do the dap up. You hug each other. You're laughing and joking. And then you try to have a conversation with the person and you realize without that job, I really got nothing to say to this guy. You're kind of remembering that a lot of the things you were talking about was you were both gossiping about other people in the office and how who's getting it on with who and who sucks and who can't get sales and who's not good. You were talking about the manager's mama and all that kind of crap. And you realize, oh, our friendship was based around that job. Ooh, and it gets awkward. And neither one of you knows how to stop the conversation. And one of you goes, please, I hope somebody calls me on my phone. Wait a minute, phones have vibrate. I'm going to act like the phone vibrate. Then I'm going to pick it up and go, oh man, I've done that before. I ran into somebody from school and we were okay in school. We were kind of cool. We were part of the same friend group, but we never really hung out individually or spent a lot of time together. We're just kind of in a group, right? We run into each other and I'm like, hey buddy, we dap each other up. I remember his name. He remembers my name. We have a great, we're talking. And after about 30 seconds, it wasn't a daggone thing to say to each other, right? But me being the creative person I am, I shook as if something weird happened. Oh, I acted like my phone vibrated. I picked my phone up and I'm like, please don't let nobody call this phone while I'm doing this. I'm just trying to get rid of this guy. I'm like, hold on, I'm talking to somebody. What? I have to leave right now because this conversation is a waste of my time and I don't want to talk to this guy anymore because I realized I didn't like him that much back then. And now, not only did I not like him this much back then, now there's so much time going past. We have literally nothing in common. In fact, I'm more emotionally attached to strangers who have pleasant looks on their faces than this particular person. Okay, I've got to leave. Oh, I'm sorry, buddy. I got to take care of some business. I got to go. Nice seeing you. And in the back of my mind, I'm going, please, let's avoid each other in the future. Right? So sometimes conversations can be uncomfortable. And sometimes we open our mouths and say things and we don't think before we speak. And I know I've done it. I know you've done it. We've all done it. Now, if you've been listening to this podcast, some of you have been listening to me for like 11 years and some of you are new. So I'm going to revisit something. The people that have been around for a while, just bear with me. I'm going to do the shortened verse. I'm not going to do like the whole episode again. Okay. But I'm going to talk about when you're fighting with your significant other, because I've been listening to some of these, while I'm writing scripts and working on stuff, I would have playing in the background some of these Reddit stories. I didn't know my wife was cheating with the football team, but then I surprised her and you'll never guess what I did. That kind of crap. And you hear these outlandish and stupid stories that were obviously written, right? But they're based on true stories because people have done these weird things. And have you ever just had somebody say something to you where when they said that thing to you, you just can't look at them the same way again, right? Or you're so detached from them, they say something that under normal circumstances, if you like them, love them, or were emotionally attached to them, would hurt your feelings. But it doesn't hurt your feelings because you don't give a damn. You're basically there out of habit. You don't even have to think before you speak because you don't care what you say to them. And they don't have to think before they speak because they don't care what they say to you. I'll give you 2 examples. The first example was a relationship where the relationship was dead. Right? This was a really, really good looking woman. And at the time I was in good shape, looking all nice and everything. And under normal circumstances, another person would want to jump on top of you and get it on with you. And she's walking around the apartment, her butt jiggling all over the place in those sweatpants. And you know what? And you know what I'm talking about by you know what? Couldn't care less. And if you would have told me that my you know what wouldn't care less about a perfect butt jiggling around, I'm like, if I'm not getting worked up over that, I know this relationship is damn near over, right? And we got into an argument over something stupid. We went out together to a bar to watch a sporting event or something, and she's purposely trying to make me jealous by flirting with another guy. And there's levels to flirting. There's flirting like I'm actually going to do something with you. And then there's the flirting where it's almost as if, is he looking? Is he looking while I do this? And even the guy that's being flirted with is looking at her like, yeah, obviously, you can read a person's face. He's looking at me like, obviously, this is your girlfriend and she's trying to use me to make you jealous. I'm not getting into this. Excuse me, ma'am. I got to go over there, right? And I knew she wasn't going to do anything. But the fact that she wanted me to be upset made me more upset than the fact that she was flirting with another dude because I know what her real flirting looks like. Right? And then I got a little petty and I started flirting with someone else. But I'm not the kind of guy that does that. So it was kind of weird. But the bad part about it was the woman I was flirting with was into it. And I'm like, oh crap, I didn't open up. I shouldn't have done that. Cause normally I wouldn't do that. I think I opened up a can of worms and she's ready to grab my hand and walk back to she's ready to a boom, boom, jiggy, boom, the boom, jiggy, right? And I'm like, oh, I better stop this. I try to hit her up with the, I got a girlfriend type thing. She's like, that don't got nothing to do with me. She didn't realize that she was like 8 feet away and was about to hit her with the uppercut. Right. And I go, she's right there. She goes, oh, and then she runs away. So you're talking to that. And she used a word to describe a woman that rhymes with the word rich. And I'm like, nah, but nothing happened there. And I'm saying, but what about you and that guy over there? You all up in that guy's face. I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, yeah, okay. You know what I'm talking about. We go back to, I forget whose apartment we went back to, but we're sitting there. We're mad in the car, right? This music sucks. And she's flipping through the radio and she's trying to find songs about dudes that ain't do nothing. She turns to the it's like a radio station. W dudes ain't crap. W dudes ain't crap. Songs about dudes who are garbage. Our next song is called He's in the Driver's Seat of His Car and He's a Piece of Crap. I loved him. He's a piece of crap. A piece of crap. A piece of crap. Hey. It's my car. I'm picking the radio stations. I'm going to change the station to W. She's a pain in the buttocks. Let me play this song here. She's an evil woman. Even though she looks good. You know those song wars. If you've been in a relationship for a long period of time, you know the song wars. You changing back and forth, make songs to try to diss the other person. Right? You get back to, I forgot whose apartment it was. We get back to the apartment And she lays in with some of the meanest stuff she's ever said in her life. I know it ain't true, but she's in another thing, and I'm gonna and you ain't the and you ain't nothing but a my last boyfriend was a and but you ain't no big and he could but you can't and all of that crap. And under normal circumstances, I would just like, man, I was like, girl, just stop all that bull stuff. We're going to have a conversation, not right. But for the first time in our relationship, and keep in mind, I didn't even make note of the fact that these really mean things she was saying meant absolutely nothing. Nothing landed. She was throwing punches and I was hitting her with a young Floyd Mayweather. Not even Money Mayweather. No, I wasn't, not Pretty Boy Mayweather, but Money Mayweather. The older, smarter version. I was putting up the shoulders. I was hitting her with the Philly shell. She wasn't making any contact at all. I was sticking my tongue out and moving out of her way for her verbal punches. Garbage. Hot garbage. But then I threw my verbal haymakers at her and it didn't land at all. She had no emotional attachment to it. And we're looking at each other. We had said some of the meanest things in the world, some of the meanest things you could possibly say, and it didn't land. And there was something about the way we looked at each other. We realized, yikes. First of all, the simple fact that we would be angry enough to say those things are horrible enough and should tell us this is not a relationship we should be in. And what makes it even worse is we said these horrible things and it didn't bother either one of us. And we ran into each other a couple times. I mean, literally the relationship just died. We didn't even have to say we broke up. It's just, we just went our separate ways. And every once in a while we run into each other. We just kind of nod and, and shake, kind of wave and nod. And that was the end of it. And then after that, we never saw each other again. It just died. Example 1. Example 2, similar situation, except for in this particular occasion, I had already decided that I'm never going to speak disrespectfully to anybody again. I might say, hey, stop it, shut up. I might go that far, but I'm not going to call any names. I'm not going to use any profanity directed towards my lady. I'm not going to do that. But this particular person wasn't the kind of person who had kind of made that kind of mental decision. And she was just as vicious as the last person because she thought I did something. I could prove I didn't do the thing. I showed her proof that I couldn't possibly do the thing. And even though I showed her proof that I couldn't possibly do the thing, she was so angry. She didn't want to give up on the anger, even though she knew she was wrong. And she, you ain't nothing but and you and just got meaner and meaner and meaner, man. And there was no reason for it. And it hurt my feelings because I actually cared about this person. And like I said, we got to think before we speak, because the moment she said those things, man, she apologized an hour later, but you had already said those things. You had intended to cause damage to me. And even as you were hitting me with this onslaught, I didn't return in kind. I tried to be calm and talk to you. And I can't be around people that are disrespectful to me. I can't do it. That's one of my mottos. And I think it's a good motto to have. If you're disrespectful to a certain level or mean to a certain level, I got to get rid of your ass. And I almost broke down and said something mean back to her. But I don't want to change who I am because somebody else is wrong. But sometimes when they say that thing, when those words hit your ears, you can't look at them the same way, man. Right? You could have the most delicious meal in the world, but if somebody stands over it and sneezes, and you could see the mist from their nose and their mouth waft down onto this 5-star meal, if you turn around and get in the conversation and turn back to the meal, there's no evidence that the person hit your meal with the sneeze. The meal doesn't even look any different. Right? Even if you ate it, it probably wouldn't even taste any different. But the mist, the sneeze, the boogie juice, the snot, the mucus, even though it was a fine mist, it's on the food. If you had a cup of coffee and the stranger would put their finger in their mouth, stuck it in their coffee and spun it around, and they took their finger out and kept walking, they wouldn't change the taste of the coffee. If you looked at the coffee and looked at the coffee in the cup, it wouldn't look any different, would it? No. but you know a stranger's dirty spit-covered finger was in it. It looks the same. It probably tastes the same, but it's not the same. It's been tainted to a point where you no longer want to ingest the coffee or to ingest the food with the mist on it. And sometimes the words that come out of a person's mouth, or the way they treat you, or the way they carry themselves around you, or the way you hear them talk about you, is that sneeze, mist, hatcha, all across your food, or the spit-covered fingers swirling around your coffee. Using that same comparison, the level of meanness she used, I'm going to use the same examples, but this would be the equivalent of someone literally squatting above your food and going, man, I hate when I have diarrhea. That's what it was, because I couldn't even look at it the same, because I didn't deserve that. And I got rid of her immediately. You can't have that. And I've never had anyone talk to me like that since. This is like in my 20s. It wouldn't, that doesn't happen anymore. But you get the point. You see, I'm a retired stand-up comedian. And so I can do things verbally that like the average person probably can't. I have the capabilities of being faster and meaner than the average person, and I know that, so I choose not to do it. I never do it. Unless I'm around my comedian friends. Because when we're hanging out together, we don't have to think before we talk, because all of us have such stand-up comedy thick skin. Even though I haven't done it in a long time, we have such stand-up comedy thick skin that it takes so much to offend us that you might as well not even try. So we're sitting around the table. Even now when I run into these guys, if I'm Zoom talking to them or I'm on the phone with them and we say things to each other that would make another person want to punch you in the face. But we know where it comes from. If you've ever been around the table with a bunch of professional comedians, especially in my case where they like each other, respect each other, and they're good at it, oh no, even though I haven't done it in a while, in a long time, still got the chops. And I'm telling you, we're sitting there talking to each other, man, we're chopping each other up real good. And sometimes you forget what's happening at the table, because you forget that the other people at the table are not that. Let me give you two examples. One example was a newer comic who was, I was the baby of the group, but he was older than me, but he was younger in comedy than me. And I was like the youngest in comedy. Like the other guys at that particular time were 15 years in, and I was like 5-6 years in or whatever. And this guy was like 3 years in, and he hadn't had a lot of comic friends like that. He'd never been part of a group like this. So he's seeing us tear each other down, and we're all laughing hysterically at getting destroyed by our friends. Right. So he decides to chime in. Right. And he's new, he got a couple of good ones in, but, like I said, it's an amateur boxer, and there's a bunch of dudes they're sitting there literally holding championship belts for their weight classes and are current you know what I'm saying? So we didn't work him over too good, but we lit him up a little bit because he was trying to light everybody up. We're having a good time. And then he started to get offended. Hey man, you can't get me. And we all looked at him like, what? Well, first of all, we were at this table before we were already at this table. You saw how we were talking to each other. You decided to try to chime in. We decided to treat you like one of us, and now you're getting offended. Sit your punk ass down. And he was like, man, this is me. We said, dude, what do we all do for a living? Well, yeah, exactly. Shut up. He got offended because he couldn't handle it. This is one of those situations. Why would you be at this table if you expect us to think before we speak? No, we speak at this table. That's what we do, you bastard. And we expected more from him because he's also a comic. Because we all know, like when I have a girlfriend, or and we have our wives or girlfriends at the table, you can tell which wives or girlfriends. And those of you who've been listening to this podcast, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm going to speak about. You've heard this before. But you could tell which spouses are going to hang and which spouses are not. Right? Because you'd see people that come there and they're sitting there they're the new girlfriend or the wife that hasn't met everybody. And all of a sudden they see us talking to each other, and you could see the look of absolute horror on the faces of some of the wives, and they're not going to divorce the wife, but the wife also knows, or the husband, because we have, obviously, I have a lot of comic friends that are ladies as well. The husband shows up. He's horrified by the way we're talking to each other. He's like, what the? You can see the look on their face. He's trying to be cool because he realized, I guess this is what they do. Or the wife is like, I guess this is what they do. And they got this look of horror on their face, like, good Lord Almighty. That's like, they're looking at us like they're looking at it like it's a dog fighting ring or something, or like cockfighting or something. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, it's just words, right? And, and those spouses usually either don't come out to hang anymore, or they come out sporadically, or over the course of a long period of time, get used to comics verbally sparring with each other and just sit back and enjoy it and laughing. But the girlfriends or the boyfriends that show up and they have that look of horror on their face, and over the course of like maybe a year or two, still have that look of horror on their face, you already know what's about to happen to them. They can't because if they can't handle that, you're living with one of us. You know what I'm saying? If you living with one of us, you know what you're going to get. And just like I thought, they all wound up going away and being replaced by somebody who can hang at the table. But under normal circumstances, it is better to think before you speak, because you have to take into consideration the feeling of the other person. Right? When I'm talking to people, I still have the comedian's brain. My brain still just writes jokes and jokes and jokes and jokes. But the comedy brain doesn't differentiate between things it should joke about and things that it should not joke about. Now, I, as the human being who's in control of the brain, I have the ability to know that there's a joke being written in there that I know is inappropriate, that I know is of bad taste, and I veto it immediately. But it's already been created. It's in my head. You don't hear it, but it's in there. Right? That's just the way the comedy brain does. You have to stop it. And to regular people who aren't comedians, you're going to come up with some things in your mind that's not comedy or jokes or skits, but you're going to think of something and you know it's inappropriate. And sometimes it comes out of your mouth. And sometimes if it comes out of your mouth in front of the wrong person, a fist comes back in the opposite direction into your mouth. Right? Look at the comment sections on any website. Doesn't matter. YouTube, Facebook, this book, that book, this tick, that. Doesn't matter what it is. The comment section, after you get to a certain level of subscribers and followers or whatever, there's always going to be somebody or some people that come in and they're either going to try to pick a fight with you. And if you ignore them, they'll go, well, the person who's who's the subject of the page, they're ignoring me. But these people down here won't. And they start attacking them. And that's another situation where a person doesn't think before they speak, because they know there's really no ramifications. There's no consequences. Right? But why would you want to inject negativity into the day of someone who doesn't know you? If you don't like what's going on there, think. This particular website, this particular YouTube page, this particular TikTok page, this particular Facebook page, they're talking about things that don't apply to me and things that are not my cup of tea. So instead of injecting my venom into the comment section, I'm going to move on to a page that is doing stuff that I like. You would think that that's what people do, but no. I see what's going on here. There's hundreds of people, thousands of people enjoying themselves. I can't have that crap. Yo mama, ethnic slur, misogyny, misandry, racism. Do you know, imagine if we were online, like all my stuff has my picture on it, and I'm not hiding anything. If I say what I say what I say, right? I don't say anything I don't back up. And if I'm wrong, I'll apologize and erase it, whatever is appropriate. But I tend not to say things that are going to really tick people off like that. But what about everybody who is in every comment section on the newspaper, even after some kind of accident happens when people say gross things? What about you were completely identifiable? What about you had to have a picture that was every month you had to update your picture. Right? So people knew what you look like now, and you had to attach your actual name to it. And the people who ran the site knew what your address was and knew who you were and all that kind of stuff. So if you said some kind of crap, people knew how to get in contact with you really easy. What if you had to do that? What would the comment sections of places online look like if people had to own up to what they said? Ooh. All of a sudden, the comment section would be a lot more friendly, wouldn't it? Right? I had a friend of mine having an absolute tragedy in my family that made the news. And I had a friend that had a tragedy that made the news. And under the news story, people said awful things because they just wanted to say awful things because somebody lost their life in some kind of way. And they wanted to say means of shouldn't have been in that neighborhood. Shouldn't have been driving that. Hey man, look both ways before you cross the street. Who told you to go there? Shouldn't have dated a woman like that. All that kind of crap, right? Shouldn't have dated a guy like that. They say that kind of stuff. Well, the person's body is not even at the morgue yet, or maybe the body's still on the ground, or maybe the person's still in the hospital and they got these mean comments. But what about people knew who you were? What about you were in the same city? What about your picture? Somebody was reading an article about their loved one or their friend that got in trouble and something bad happened to them, and they saw you say this kind of thing, and they saw your face, and they're in the supermarket. And they see you. Ooh. Are you Frank Johnson? Yeah, who's asking? I'm Bill Smith. Okay, do we know each other? Oh no, I don't know. You don't know me, but I know you. You see, my grandmother was the one that had to run out of her house in her underwear on the news. And you were the one that was making fun of it while she was crying on the news because her heirlooms got burnt up. And then you were making fun of her, huh? Yeah, man, but I was just, ain't no just nothing. Ain't no just nothing. And the next thing you know, there's another news story. Dude gets ass royally whooped at the supermarket. Not that I'm advocating that. But it's very, very important. Like I said, it's very, very important for all of us to think before we speak. There's no reason to hurt somebody or bust somebody's ass or to do mean things. It's a lot easier to be nice to people. It just is. Right? I mean, even today I was at a supermarket buying some stuff, and my thing was, I forgot what it was, $26.50 or whatever. No, $30.50 or something like that. And I didn't have the change. I had money, but I didn't have the change. And she goes, don't even worry about it. And just let me slide for the 50 cents. I had the money. She's like, don't worry about it. Why did she do that? Because the many times I'd gone to that supermarket before we had pleasant conversations, she wouldn't normally do that. And I've had things like that happen before. People will be nice to you if you're nice to them. And if you're nice to them and they're nice to you, and we make that the habit, the world's a nicer place. Right? Isn't that what we want? Of course it is. All right, folks, this has been episode number 501 of S. Anthony Says, aka the S. Anthony Says podcast. Much love to you all. Thank you for listening to last week's episode. Thank you for listening to this one in advance, because I know you're going to listen to this one too. Do me a favor, my friends. Google my name. My name is S. Anthony Thomas. If you see my stuff online, if you see me on Instagram, you see me on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, whatever, follow me there. Especially my YouTube, which is Mr. S. Anthony Thomas, Mr. S. Anthony Thomas. So go check that out. All right. And make sure you subscribe to that channel. And to the people that have already subscribed to that channel and have begun to listen to the podcast, welcome aboard and thank you. I will see you again next time, my friends. Take care. Take care. And hey, be nice to somebody. You dig? Cool. Bye.